Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin. Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, 25-year serial tech entrepreneur. My new book, Fail Hard, Win Big, just came out here in July of 2025. It's my story of having 30 ventures with 20 failures and 10 wins. Sometimes I have to take a step back and say, do I really want to promote I had 20 failures? But if I was a Major League Baseball player, that would put me at a 333 batting average, and that would get me in the Hall of Fame. So I'll take it. Big thing of every company I've built is I always build custom software around to make sure operational processes are good, create unique client experiences, and raise enterprise value. That's been one of the keys to my success. Now I am the CEO of Sonatify Technology. We are a nearshore custom software development company helping others build out their software. We have a fun guest today, Chris Ortega out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, who is the CIO of LMCU. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve.
I have to admit, I'm a little intimidated by the samurais staring at me behind you. I won't ask anything where they'll have to jump through the screen.
No problem. That's my gaming / everything machine. So
very nice. Then that's the right tech leader setup right there, to say the least. Chris, if you would, please walk our listeners through the journey of your career and what's led you to your current CIO position.
Yeah, so I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. So I actually started in computers when I was about 10 years old. I had a Timex Sinclair, if you remember one of those, and I had a Commodore 64. Went up the ranks with a 286, 386, all the way through. I'd always been interested in computers. For some reason, I felt, I was good at it. It just was kind of logical for me. I started off as a computer science major at Eastern Michigan University, but then I graduated with an economics degree. But I still really love technology. And this weird internet thing was coming around at the time. And so I decided when I got done with college that I would throw my hat back into technology and get into computer-based systems again. And so I was a help desk guy learning Linux. And then I knew Unix from when I was in college. And so it was pretty easy to pick up and for an internet service provider. And then I was a computer-based trainer for a while for CompUSA, if you remember those guys.
Yes.
And then after that, was an engineer for them. And I really enjoyed just fixing problems. I loved solving technical problems. I mean, I was the kind of dude that if you threw me into a volcano, I was going to fix everything. And at that time, it wasn't really about the knowledge. I mean, I was gathering knowledge at the time, but it was also about I would stick to it. Like I wouldn't give up on an issue. I would be up all night until I would figure things out. And so that kind of got me a good reputation.
Great tech leaders figure out how to solve the problems that most can't. And there's always problems.
Yeah. And what's great about it too is that you learn things around it too. So as I was learning how to fix an issue, maybe SQL Server went down or whatever, I was learning around it. And so it just, it sort of compounded my knowledge. And so I really loved learning just kind of about everything. So I was a developer, I was in security, I was a database architect, I was a network engineer, I was a enterprise architect. And so, with the technical stuff, I really loved it, but I really got passionate about people and what it took in order to accomplish our goals. And so I found myself where I was helping other people in how to build, let's say at development, we're doing enterprise applications, and how do we squeeze enough resources out of it in order to take on as much traffic as we could, let's say for a Golf Channel website or something like that. So I worked for the Golf Channel a little bit. And eventually I really got into the people part and started learning project management methodologies and, learning more about like QA and other areas of IT. And this whole CIO thing came around, and I thought, well, that would be cool to be a CIO. But I always thought that was such a weird thing because at the time, anyone who was a CIO tended to be more on the network side. It was a battlefield promotion. But they didn't know anything about development, or they didn't know about database architecture. And so it was I think it was a tough position for someone to be a CIO. So I really worked hard to expand my knowledge into not just, the technical side, but also the people side and the process side. So eventually it came from being good at fixing technical problems to fixing teams and building high performing teams. And so I worked at several different places, and I was learning all these different processes and what was working, what wasn't working. And I would have people call me up, or companies call me up and say, Chris, hey, we've got this team and they're a mess. Can you come help fix it? And so I would come and fix it and work with the team and support them. And then when that agile craziness came around, and I was a big proponent of that. And I remember fighting the battles for agile. And so I became a big proponent of agile, and mixed with that technical knowledge, I really kind of rose through the ranks of becoming a director or VP, and then finally a CIO. And Steve, I was pretty picky about where I would be a CIO, because I didn't want to do it just because of the title. I wanted to do it because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted it to be a good experience, and I wanted the teams to really believe in who I was. So I really took my time in getting to the right time and the right place.
So how did you end up in the banking industry?
Yeah, so I've always been involved in finance at some point. I worked for a company doing value added cards. We worked with banks. So if you remember the Visa Bucks cards, so I was on a team that built that. And so I was in financial institutions, or some sort of FI related technology. And I worked for an international payments company for a little bit. And then I ended up working for Suncoast Credit Union down in Florida. And I worked for them for only really a couple of years. And then the CFO became the CEO of Lake Michigan Credit Union. And she said, Chris, we did some amazing things down there, and I really need someone I can trust. And I finally felt like, okay, I think this is the right time. And
Well,
so
and
here I
that I always like to ask, how people landed their current role, because let's face it, being a CIO and CTO is a tough job.
Yeah,
It's been very volatile. They're blamed for everything, good, bad,
yeah,
or indifferent.
yeah.
And so thank you for sharing that. You were able to leverage your relationship from an existing role to get your current one.
Yeah, and it is a lot of responsibility in the CIO position, and I've really kept an eye on it over the years, has really evolved. I mean, it's not just a technical dude. It is somebody who also helps to build process, and also helps to accomplish solutions for other business units. And that's what I do today. And even fight fires. I mean, I've had to fight fires, almost since the time I started with LMCU. And it's been a challenge. I mean, there's been LMCU has been modernizing and trying to catch up, and credit unions haven't always been the most technical of organizations. They're more for the member, and they're not out for profit. And I think credit unions now are really starting to realize that they really have to be modernized and up with technology in order to be successful.
Well, and compliance in the banking industry is always a huge
Yeah,
barrier and challenge to that modernization.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So what are some current projects you're working on?
Oh boy, we got a lot of so like I said, we're modernizing, and so I would say one project that we're working on is bringing in robotic process automation through UiPath, and there's been no automation to speak of at LMCU whatsoever, and so it created really an open door for us to get in there and put it in. I've had a really good experience with them. They're also working with us putting in agentic AI on their AI platform, and so we've got a proof of concept going on right now through HELOCs, which are home equity loans, and filling out the applications and making some decision making on loan origination for that. So that's
So
one huge project.
that's interesting, because I don't hear of a lot of credit unions really jumping on the AI bandwagon too quickly.
Yeah, a lot of them that I've talked to are really looking at like chatbots and things like that. They're sort of dipping their toes in. And I said, no, that's not what we're going to do. We're gonna use AI and process automation and process management. And so that's one thing that we're looking at. And then I'm also having the teams, because I'm also in charge of project management and our BAs, and it's called enterprise agility. And their job right now is to really define what our backend processes are, so we can find where AI and where RPA can be most effective. And so as we map these out, we're defining all of those pain points, especially those processes that go across business units, because how business units are, they do their part and then they throw it over the wall to the next one, and then they do something and then they throw it over the wall, but nobody's looking at the whole thing, at the whole process from end to end. And so we're looking at opportunity there for a lot of RPA and for AI solutions.
Gotcha. Interesting. Now, it sounds like you have quite a large engineering team, especially for a credit union. Talk about that if you would.
Yeah, I've got about 150 people that are on my team, and very sharp people, excited about the direction that we're going in. So I'm in charge of our infrastructure group, so our network engineering group, our server administration group. We're building a data analytics group. Right now, when I came in, it was just probably like 8 BI guys. And so we're expanding our data analytics group to be about 16 additional headcount that will be data stewards, data engineers, a whole big crew of people to really work with our data, define that data, and put some governance around it.
Is this
So
normal, Chris, for a credit union to have such a large technical IT team?
now we're
Because I've had other CIOs of credit unions on, and they have like 8 people, or they always seem to be smaller. Why is LMCU so tech focused? I'm all for it. I
yeah.
agree, but I'd like to hear from you.
Well, LMCU is the 13th largest credit union in the United States. And so
Okay.
we have about $15 billion in assets. And so we have a very sizable credit union. And so the needs of our expansion as we grow just come ever increasingly higher. And so we need a strong technical IT team that's ready to move forward. And so we have 75 branches in Michigan and in Florida. And so it's a lot of work, and it takes a big crew to maintain what we're doing.
Gotcha. Well, tell us about some of the other tech initiatives that you're doing.
So I know this isn't necessarily technical, but I think it's important. Is we're doing an agile transformation with LMCU. LMCU has had this waterfallish, chaotic way of doing things, and so we're bringing in, agile technology in order for us to be able to get control of the way we work, so that we're efficient, fast, and it's new for this team. I mean, a lot of them have never really worked with in a good agile environment. Where I always say we're scrum-ish, because I believe that agile should conform to the organization and the culture.
Well said, and I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and so and it's a journey, it's a journey for everyone. And but we live those scrum values, and we're developing that mindset. In fact, my goal is to create agile in the enterprise and make it so that agile methodologies are used in all of the credit union and all of the business units, because as we bring AI into my belief is that you can't have AI without agile. It's just impossible. And if you want to be successful, you have to have an agile approach. And specifically, I'm more of a, I guess, it's scrummish evangelical. So, and that's what we're doing right now. We've got teams where business units are overlapping with our IT groups and working together in a scrum way, and putting these scrum teams together so that the business units partner with IT, opposed to IT just telling them or doing the work for them. They become a part of that work, and that's how we're growing it out.
Gotcha. You must have good non-technical business leaders you work with that truly trust and appreciate the process to take it that far.
Yeah, and it helps when you're successful too. And so we
No doubt.
what I love about agile methodologies, specifically Scrum, is in people tend to forget it, it's all about the empiricism. It's about the data that we collect and show, how the teams are doing, and we integrate lean methodologies in place too. So continuous improvement is very important for us. I always say that we change every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, and we don't make change for the sake of change. We make a change and we look at the data. Are we making a positive impact by the changes that we make? And all the teams are becoming self-organized, and they're really really loving the fact that they have a say in how the work gets done, and more they're growing. And I will say that we've immediately have, and our agile transformation probably started about 4 or 5 months ago. We already across the board have a 20% increase in productivity for all teams, and unplanned work has gone down 39%. I just got
Well,
those numbers today.
that's amazing. And most organizations aren't ready for the true capabilities that AI could bring, because you have to have good data. You have to have good data governance, which everybody hates doing. So it sounds like you have your company ahead of the curve to take advantage of that.
Yeah, we're trying to get there. So we have a new VP of data analytics that I brought from one of the larger companies over here, and he's got good vision. Him and I had a really good conversation, and just like you said, he's already worked with the business units and defining what that data governance looks like. And we also are setting up a AI governance. But more importantly, Steve, the one thing, and I just talked about this with our CEO today, that we're really looking to do is really keep looking ahead, right? And so my next part of this towards the end of this year is to set up a center of excellence so that we can start looking at emerging technologies, not just AI, but stablecoin, blockchain, all these other things that can overlap with AI, and integrate them and be ready for those for the future. And so we're setting up a center of excellence for that at the end of this year, once we get everything established of what we're doing now.
So a lot of organizations are many, many steps behind what you're doing and what you're putting in place. Why do you think that is?
I think actually it has a lot to do with us. I think it has to do with us as an IT, as an industry, that we don't do a very good job of connecting with the business and showing them the success through the numbers that we have. And if you don't have that data, that empiricism to be able to show that success, then it creates doubt. And then at the same time too, if you do agile right, it is a very effective methodology in order to get work done. And I see so many times where people just say, well, this is what the Scrum book said. This is what the Agile book says. And I always say, no, if you are following the rules of Agile, then you're not doing Agile. Those are guidelines. They're guidelines to be able to form fit. And I'm a big believer in, the message that Jeff Sutherland had given, is that, that Agile should be a methodology that, again, fits that your culture, that you form fit, and is based off of the feedback that you get from the team and the feedback that you get from your stakeholders. So, and if you do that, then you can't help but be successful.
So Chris, what would you say is the hardest part of your job as CIO of one of the largest credit unions? What's the hardest part of your job?
Well, I mean, I love what I do. I really love problem solving, and I love getting up in the morning and going, all right, what new problem am I going to face today? So, but I think the hardest part of my job is usually the beginning, just after you told everybody what you want to do and they're all excited and they're all happy. Well, then it becomes execution time. And whenever I've done these change transformation, it starts alone. I'm by myself, and I have to win hearts and minds to believe in, what I've done in the past, and have, a team that's going to pick up on it. Fortunately, at LMCU, I was able to bring people that I've worked with in the past who have, gone on the successful journey with me, and they know what to do. They know what I expect. But it's just getting those people, though. What's hard is just getting people to believe, and just taking a chance and leaving the past behind and saying, okay, I'm going to believe this guy. We're going to try this and see if we can be successful. That's the toughest part of the job.
Gotcha. What's one brutal lesson through your battles you've done that you wish you would have learned earlier?
I think it's hard to say, because when you're evolving and learning and adopting and adapting, you always say, if I hadn't have gone through that, I wouldn't be who I am today. But I think that if there was anything I wish I could have done earlier, it probably would have been, I think it would have been realizing the value of people more than managing the people. And I think everyone goes through that when they first manage people. I think when they're first time managers, it's all about telling people what to do, right? And loving that title and stuff. And I think what I realized was the people who work for you have more power than you. And if you don't respect that, then you're never going to be successful with your teams. And I treat people as if they're my boss. I'm not their boss. They're my boss. I rely on them. And I go out of my way to make sure that I clear trees for people to get their jobs done. Because if someone walks out, I've got to hire someone new. I've got to train that person. I got to get them up to speed, and I think if I would have done anything earlier, I probably would have valued that more as a beginning manager than like now. I've learned over the years that you really have to treat people well and respect them and know that they've got lives outside of work that you have to support. I have people that they have kids to take care of and families to feed and families to take care of, and we have to be flexible enough to be able to that. So
that's a smart leadership attitude that unfortunately you normally can only learn that by screwing it up.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
So
I got stories.
We all do, to say the least. I wrote a whole book on all the screw ups I did and how I learned from them. And unfortunately, you learn a lot more you do from your failures than you do your successes. Unfortunately.
Yeah, and I love the title of your book. I'm a fail forward type of dude. For sure.
There's certainly being a CIO, being a CTO has been certainly the role has evolved. It's challenging as the technology leader. You're blamed for everything, good, bad, or indifferent. What advice do you have for other CIOs and CTOs who may be out of work right now and looking for a job? What advice would you have for those people?
Be persistent, be confident, don't ever give up. And I think it's always understand that something is going to come for you. I was out of work about 3 or 4 years ago, and I had some difficulty finding a new job. And I just kept saying to myself, something is coming, something's going to come, and I just had to keep that attitude.
But in this day and age, can you get a CIO or CTO job from applying on LinkedIn or Indeed?
I think
or
so.
Do you have to know somebody?
I think to both, right? Sometimes you know somebody. I'm never going to say I didn't get a job that way. I have. And then sometimes you just have to be persistent. I think you have to keep all options open, and networking is great. Networking is a good way to be able to, to find another position, especially if they know the kind of accomplishments that you had in the past. Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. I appreciate you coming on the show, Chris, talking about the amazing things you're doing at LMCU, which, like I said, I've had other credit union CIOs on, and sounds like you're pushing the boundaries of your industry, which is just fantastic. Yeah. Thank you for getting uncensored with us today. Any final advice for tech leaders you have before we end the show?
Yeah, I think my final advice is, look to take care of the people first. Look to make sure that your people are supported, and everything else will fall in place.
Awesome. Great advice, Chris. Thank you so much. Keep crushing it, doing what you're doing. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. Stay bold and keep building.
That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.